Hi, this is Micornus, Phokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. Part 3 today, of course, of the topic that we started. And we're speaking about factors that cause leaders to scatter the churches. Factors that cause leaders to scatter churches. And one of the factors that I want to deal with today is lack of courage and fear. It's one of those factors that are very common. It can scatter the church, it can destroy the church, it can actually run the church down and ruin it. And I want to speak about that just for a moment today. Now, most leadership teams in local churches are afraid to change. And I want to start with fear of change, because fear of change will definitely affect the church. Now, when the leadership has got a fear to change, they will actually stick on same ways of doing things, focus on same ways of doing things, and never change. And the world is transitioning into multiple changes that if the church is not in line with changes that are happening, or the leaders are afraid to change, you're going to see the church actually scattering and crumbling, and you're going to see actually the church dying a natural death. And I'm emphasizing this because it's very key that we are careful of making sure that the leaders are not fearful. The leaders become courageous. Now, if the leader is afraid to change, admit and remove the barriers that hinder growth in their churches, they will actually ruin the church as well. Because if you are change agent, you are somebody who would love to see change happening, but you're also able to admit and remove barriers that are actually hindering church growth. There's no way you're going to make the church grow, but you must be courageous to do that. You must be courageous to admit and remove hindrances that hinder the church growth and make sure that the church grows. So also look for factors that will actually enhance church growth as well. That becomes very, very important. But it goes with leaders that are not afraid to change, leaders that are agents of change, and leaders that are driven by change, and leaders that would love to see things changing. Of course, churches that are like that, they become more stronger and they become sustainable as well. Now, they often know them, but will never admit them because of their personal advantages, because you'll realize that people that are leaders that are afraid to change, they will actually see things that will delay churches. They'll see barriers that will delay churches, but most of the time they will never admit that these things are causing barriers, or they're actually slowing down the church. And because of that, they will remain with those things, because most of the time, these things that we're talking about, they're personal advantages or they're personal gains for the leader. And the leader doesn't want to change, therefore, because they don't want to see things changing. Now, when leaders, they lack courage to take decisions, and we've seen this happening generally, where leaders cannot take decisions, and they will actually allow the congregation to go on, and there are things that need to be decided on. For an example, we have seen churches whereby the senior pastor would have appointed people some time ago, and these particular people are not performing, these particular people are not supporting anymore, these particular people are actually slowing down the progress of the church, but decisions are not taken at the top. And the leader or the visionary is afraid to make those decisions, to fire and to remove those leaders that are delaying the growth of the church. And we've seen that happening frequently. And that's the reason that I'm saying, if you lack courage to make decisions, if you lack courage to actually approach and remove those leaders, then you're going to delay the church forever. And you're going to destroy it, and you'll scatter the church slowly, as you are not aware that the same leaders, the people that you have appointed to become leaders, are the very same ones that are slowing the church. They're the same ones that are not participating in things that they need to be participating in. They're the very same people that are actually not leading by example as well. And if you are afraid to remove them, you are afraid to make decisions, actually to make changes at the leadership board, you are going to actually destroy the church and you're going to scatter it yourself as a leader. So this is very important that we emphasize that decisions have to be made by the leadership. Decisions have to be made by the visionary himself, and have courage to do so. And never fear to make decisions, because when you fear to make decisions, then you'll see that the church will actually be ruined, and you will actually lose out on building the church because you are lacking decision making. You are fearing to make decision making. The same like you would see any leader anywhere. Whether it's the president of a country, there are times when they are challenged to be able, that they're supposed to make decisions. And some of the decisions that need to be made are actually not popular decisions. They are not decisions that everybody will clap hands and be excited about. Those are decisions generally that you need to take, and they may not be popular at all, but they're decisions that when you take, they will sustain the church itself. So this is very, very important. Don't be fearful. Have guts, have courage to actually announce even things that you may be afraid of announcing. You will scatter the church when you don't do so, because those decisions, you find that they are very crucial and very important, that if not made, the church will go south. It will get destroyed and it will die. When you don't arrest the drift sometimes amongst members, divisions that are amongst members, you don't address them. You don't decide on some punitive measures sometimes where you need to decide on punitive measures. You are actually going to ruin the church. You're going to destroy the church as well. And the church will scatter just because of fearfulness and lack of courage as well. Next, I want to deal with this next factor that causes leaders to destroy or to scatter churches, is what we call carnalities and politics. And I want to speak a little bit about this, because carnalities and politics, we have seen that they are very often in churches more visible. They are seen, and most of the churches have been scattered and destroyed because of carnalities and politics as well. Now, truth be told, there are too much politics in churches. Political considerations and carnal tendencies in the church leadership of today. And this can be seen in our Pentecostal churches: power mongering, power struggles, politics, and we have seen those things happening. And those politics happen in a local church and in the church at large, in the community. And there are some carnalities that go with it, to an extent that you'll find people who would fight, even literally fist fights in the church. People would actually even get to a point where they can kill each other, and because of politics in the churches. And I want to emphasize this, that these are things that destroy churches, because when there are politics in a church and the carnalities of fights and this unity in churches, people decide to leave the church, and the church scatters and destroys. We have seen where churches are actually disintegrating, some breaking into halves, whereby some part goes to another junior pastor, the other part goes there, and that's what we call church divisions. And we've seen that happening generally in many churches, and it is caused generally by carnalities and politics in the churches. And that needs to be arrested from that particular point and be well known that this is a factor that can destroy churches as well. People use church positions to test their own nest, or to foster their own nest, or make them tighten their own nest, and church positions to actually make some cliques and groups of people. And we've seen that, to reward their cronies and subjugate the voice of reasons. And we have seen that. And in many churches that believe in voting for leadership, we have seen that some of the leaders have actually been appointed to come just to oppose the senior pastor, just to come and oppose the visionary. Because of that, they reward their own cronies, and they always subjugate some voice of reason. Those people that are speaking sense, those people that are bringing a voice of reason in the church, they are being subjugated and they are being stopped to say anything. And for that reason, then you find people walking out of the church and don't want to be part of such a church anymore, because it sanctions people's voice. It stops you from saying your mind. It actually stops people from bringing a voice of reason in the church itself. And when you block people with voice of reason, they will walk out of the church. They're not going to be part of that church anymore. Now, some leaders are in the habit of picking quarrels with members. We have seen that you find leaders that take things personal, and they will actually hate some of the members in the church, and they will pick quarrels with the church members, whereby you are a leader, but yet you pick quarrels with church members. And members that realize that they've got gripes with their own leaders, with their own pastors, they walk out of the church. And majority of the churches that have been destroyed and scattered is particularly because members have had problems with the leadership. And you may not know which leader amongst your leaders as a senior pastor that is scattering the church or destroying the church, but it needs you to spot check and make sure that you know your leadership very well. You are aware that some of the people may be walking out of the church because your leaders themselves are picking quarrels with them. So if that is the case, you need to address the leadership. You need to speak to the leadership and make sure that things of that nature don't happen. And that's very important that we do emphasize that. And it's something that it needs to be considered and be spoken to. Very, very important, and we are saying this so that you can be able to manage that in the particular church where you are in. Carnalities, politics, are things like that. Some leaders are, as I said, in the habit of picking quarrels, but some of them are in the habit of dividing the church, whereby it's like a hobby to divide the church. It's like a hobby to carry around gossips and backbitings as well. And because of that, when it is being distributed or is being caused by leaders, members will walk away from that church and the church will scatter itself. And members of the church will be divided. They'll be in groups that have been caused by the leadership by gossiping behind the backs of other members. And that is not acceptable in a church if we are to build a church. When leaders display lots of flesh, carnal tendencies and political maneuverings as well, the results will always be goodbye to growth and goodbye to progress in the church. And I'm sure you have seen that happening in many of the churches. I want to end up here today, your host, Micornus Phokane. Thank you very much for listening to us and being part of this great topic. And of course, you've learned out of this part 3 today. We'll embark on part 4 tomorrow. And I hope you'll join us and be part of it. But also before I check out, remember our Facebook page, Micornus Phokane, and the one Church Governance Solutions. Please like those pages. Click notification buttons as well, that you may be notified each time we've posted a video of this kind. And remember also to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel has got a lot of materials that we've posted over the years, and you will learn out of those. And your church shall be administered well, governed well. And I'm sure you would remember that we are Church Governance Solutions, and we are restoring godly order in the house of the orderly God. So allow me to check out right here now and say cheers for now.